Do you have friends whom you ask them, why did you say that you will work out and you've not worked out the whole year? When are you starting to work out? You said that, you've told me that for 5 years. Why are we still here? Being able to set boundaries, because I can't be 30 years old and fearing that someone will beat me. They can't. I have an ID, I'll sue them, even if they are my friends. Like, you can't beat me, so I'd rather just tell you no. 30 is the place whereby we're telling each other the truth. Like, we're calling out each other. We are supporting each other towards goals. We are supporting each other towards godliness. Like, this is not the place where you just hang out with the coolest person in the circle. There's value you're adding toward each other, then that's the kind of a friend you should have. Hi, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, karibu sana. This is a channel where we talk about everything positivity, do everything creativity as we exalt Christ. So we are back to the series that we are on, reflecting on my 20s as I navigate my 30s. So today we are going to have a discussion around friendship and community. And when I say community, I talk about a group of friendship, being in a circle of friends who can actually check up on you, whom you can rely on, and whom you can call more like a family. So yeah, that's what I mean by community in this context. So I'll start by history, or I'll start by the background. For those who don't know, I'm a seventh born in a family of 9. But I also have a foster family. I was fostered, where I'm more like a second born in a family of 5. So that being said, I'm used to numbers. I'm used to a big family. I'm used to having people around me. And I don't think it has ever been hard to socialize. Let me just say socialize with people, or hold a conversation with people from, I think, when I was young. And also simply because at a very young age, I started being a leader in terms of being a prefect. Yeah, and also really going to church and serving and doing things. Yeah, I was exposed to different communities, the church community, the community, the neighborhood, and really different aspects, and even a family. When you're in a family of 9, I think you are more than a family, you're now a community, because I mean, altogether you're like 11. In our African context, you understand, at no particular time you lack a cousin, a young uncle, or someone really in the house, even sometimes a stranger. So when you come from a big family, that means the number is +2, +3, sometimes +5. So if we are 9, we'll go up to 10, 11, 12, yeah. So basically that was my background. During my teenage, my life changed a bit, or rather I was in a different community or context. I used to go to this church where the church has 2 social classes. Like, the church is found in an area where there are people from different background. And because of that, there was a lot of groupies, especially when you're teenagers. And I do not, as I share this, I do not whatsoever blame the church. Please hear me out. I'm not blaming the church. No matter where you are, if there are different classes, classism will still appear. Like, the difference within the classes will be evident, no matter how much you're trying for them not to be evident. And it's based on different things. For example, if people come to church, you'll find that some people are walking, some people are driving, or some people are taking public means, some people are driving. So those are some of the few things. Even the kind of clothes like people wear, you'll find that the people from a higher class will wear, I don't know how to say it, but more expensive clothes. In one reason or another, like more like newer clothes. These other people will wear like second-hand clothes. No matter how you try to bridge the gap will still be there, because this is, I feel like class is a structural issue as opposed to a gap that can easily be bridged by efforts. Yeah, so that's the kind of context I found myself in. In terms of our economic status, I was in the lower class. Yeah, so of course, it was a challenge trying to mingle. I'm trying to figure out whether it's hard now for people to, like, bridging the gap, or it was back then. I'm not sure, but personally, I know that it wasn't easy. And it's not because people made it difficult, but you know the way teenagers are. Of course, at teenage, there's the whole thing of groupie, best friends, all that kind of thing. So that it was children's thing. So maybe the gap was not felt by the older people. Maybe it was more apparent for us who are younger, and at teenage, where you want recognition, you want acceptance, you want to feel like you belong. So during that time, probably it's the time I got the whole, I don't think whether I should call it trauma, but a reservation towards making friends, because I wanted to feel like if I'm making friends with you, then I'm fully accepted, I fully belong. You are accepting me just the way I am, without me really having to hide things, without really me having to pretend that this is the way I am, and well, that's not the way I am. And at this point, I really want to appreciate one of my friends who was, I really don't know where she belonged, but probably she was in between. She could easily relate with people in the lower class, economic class, that is, while but also she could relate with the people in the middle upper class. So because of where their home was situated, because of exposure, I know that there are parents who deliberately expose their children to different contexts just so that they burst the bubble. So yeah, I think the parent had done deliberate work in ensuring that this particular child was a bit exposed to different contexts. So she became one of my, and still is, my closest friends. And that's how I sort of drew closer to people in the middle upper class. If you understand the classes in Kenya, I don't know how the classes are like in other countries, but at least in Kenya, that's like a middle upper class. And someone says it's always the middle class people who are always stubborn. I'm sorry if you are in I'd call myself right now someone in the middle class, more like probably a middle lower class. But like she loves making fun of the middle class, people who belong in the middle class, of which I think she would categorize herself in the same. So it's just a banter. At a very young age, I learned the things like lanes, making sure that I stay in my lane, just so that, you know, the way teenagers are. So if there's this groupie, and then they've created it in a way that they only want people who look like they belong there, and they'll do everything to make someone outside not to feel like they belong, especially when you find just these mean groupies. I don't know how to say it. So I experienced some of those, and not like I was outrightly pushed away, but I could see it. So I ensured that, because I was protecting myself so much, and maybe also to mention, my mom had told us some time back that we should always be where we are wanted. That is something that I carried with me in spaces where I could see like classes or groupies, and I'll look at where do I feel accepted or invited, and I incline towards such spaces or towards such groupies. So that was my personal experience. Maybe someone else would have experienced it differently. And again, if my friend was to say her side of the story, probably it will be different. Also based on her own background, on her own perception, on her own traumas during that time. Maybe also the way I perceived things at that particular time was based on previous experiences earlier in my childhood. The fact that I was able to know my lane, I still enjoyed. I think that really helped me, because I would look at spaces where it's possible to get in, I'll get in, and those which looked like they were, you know, the way someone has a pass towards, you have a pass for a certain function, and then there are those ones that are, everyone is coming, those ones I'll attend. And when I feel like this is restricted, but I don't have a pass, I'll be like, no, I'll just go home, or I want to come for that. So that is how I navigated my teenage. Then I got into my adulthood, and I feel like I really carried a lot of lessons. I might have carried my survival mechanisms or coping mechanisms, and I use the same in campus. However, in campus, because there are so many people, I feel like there's always a space for everyone, no matter who you are. Because I mean, the people are so many, and if you don't belong here, then there's always a place for you. But for me, I think also in how I made friends, my earlier experiences really influenced. And just saying this, I know I've just talked of the part of how I was making friends at home, and that meant like at church, because I also had another context at home. At home, it was pretty easy, because we lived in a community where we were the same status in terms of economic status. So for school as well, it wasn't that hard, because I feel like I had other things working for me. I had maybe my academics, I don't know, like I felt like I was slightly, not very popular, but slightly popular. I was known, I was a prefect. So maybe those acted as badges of honor. So I really don't know, but it wasn't difficult. I felt like I belonged. I was able to even create my own circles and invited people over, because I remember this time where we had this a lady that was discriminating people based on how exposed, we call it washamba, versus like when you're mechanuka versus when you're washamba. So more like if you're exposed, if you're coming from the city, if you look like you know things, she'll be like, you'll be in our bus. Like we'll for context, during closing days, we were told to be in groups so that our principal would call like buses or like vans to come and pick us, public transport to come and pick us. So you'll create a group where you'll go home together, but it was a public transport. So I remember this time she was like, no, I'm only picking. And by the way, Maki, those who remember this story, I don't know whether she'll come across this. She had repeated, that's the weird thing. She had repeated, and that's why she knew how to navigate things. We were from ones. So she was like, everyone who's cool can come to my bus. And if you're not cool, you'll just figure out how you'll go. So I think that was more like, what do you usually call it? More like started my own my own grouping, and I was like, if you think you're not cool, this is our bus. Like I'm starting a bus for everyone who feel like they're not cool. Like all the people that she had sent away, and funny enough, she had put me in her bus. That was the funniest thing. I hate when people discriminate against others. So she had picked me in her bus because by that time I think I was a prefect already. So I think based on that, and also I'm quite an outspoken person. So I think I was social, I was outspoken. She thought I was cool. So I was like, no, we're not doing this to other people. So if you think you're not cool, I'll have this bus where I'll call all the people who they've been told they're not cool, and then we'll travel together. So that's what I did at that particular time. I think then that gave me a mileage in terms of how I interacted with people, how people perceived me in terms of probably feeling like they belong, even those who really felt looked down upon as early as that. Basically, that was my experience. So I was talking of now in campus. So in campus, I used learnings from my previous experiences, especially those from the church in terms of classes, and just ensured that I was in spaces where I felt I belonged, and where I felt people didn't feel like they belonged, I sort of created spaces where they would feel comfortable. Yeah, and it was never hard. However, I've learned that I actually don't have a close university friends. Like I see people having university get-togethers, or they have best friends from university. I'm like, what did I do? I am the problem, clearly. I am the problem. And I don't know how. I think I didn't have like close friends. I had more of acquaintances. So this is the time I realized, like, didn't I have even one single close friend? That is very weird. And also probably, maybe not altogether. I usually want to really check myself, because I also don't have a very close friend from high school. I don't know, like, where did I go wrong with theirs? I'm asking myself many questions. I think that is a question I should ask myself. So I think I had acquaintances both in high school and in campus. Most of the people from campus, I don't think I even have someone I'd called I would call an enemy. I was getting along with a lot of people, but I think the relationships were at acquaintances level. I think I'll get to that and quickly get to that. So campus just happened. I don't know how, but it wasn't because I wasn't boarding. I wasn't staying in the hostels. I was maintaining my friends from church, from home. Yeah, so basically I think that's how I navigated it. Before proceeding, I think it's always wise to learn from the Bible. At this particular time, I want us to learn from the scriptures and see examples of friendships. And I think one of the very clear, or a relationship that comes out clearly, or a friendship, is one between David and Jonathan. And the Bible says, the story is in around 1 Samuel chapter 20, 16 to 40 something. The Bible says that Jonathan loved David like himself, like loving him like himself. That's serious. You can imagine someone loving another like they love themselves. And it's not a spouse, it's not a parent, it's not God. Like you're loving another person as you love yourself. And David was the enemy of Jonathan's father, or rather, Saul, who was Jonathan's father, was after David. So David should have been the last person Jonathan was making friends with. But I mean, this was a very good friendship that we can emulate. And normally, as I was researching, I saw this being called covenant friendships. And I think as we go on, we will learn different types of friendships, and I will mention them at the very end. I might mention them as we go on in all these people I'll mention from the scripture, but I will summarize them later on. So that is the first example that we learn from. So the second one is the friendship between Elijah and Elisha. And this kind of friendship is a mentorship kind of friendship. You know, where you have a friend, but they've gone ahead of you, and you are like, could you mentor me to be like you? So Elijah was a prophet, and Elisha was like, he would want to receive a double portion of what he had. And Elijah tells Elisha, as long as you see me going, you'll be able to receive. And he does that, and is able to receive a double portion of the same grace that Elijah had. The third kind of friendship is the friendship between Job and his three friends. Their names are Bildad, Tamanite, and Eliphaz. And these friends, we see them coming to see him during his during that time when he was going through a tough time. So I think a lesson we learn from this kind of friendship is, and a question you should ask yourself, are your friends usually with you when you're going through suffering, or are they just there when you're having a nice time? And are your friends in those ones of in sickness and in health, or are they just there when you're in health and not there when you're going through sickness? And I think in as much as we also see them saying things out of context, not understanding really the will of God, but at least they were there. And eventually when Job comes out of all this kind of suffering, he's able to pray for them. Yeah, he's able to pray for them because they just showed up. As ignorant as they were concerning what he was going through, they showed up. And they even tried to give their 2 cents, which I mean wasn't true, but they were there. I think a take home is, if you are a friend, show up for your friends. If you have friends, check whether they show up for you. Another kind of friendship, which is also a mentorship kind of friendship that we see, is the friendship between Timothy and Paul. This is found in Philippians chapter 2, verse 22. And we see that Timothy stuck by Paul during his worst moments. Paul was able to stir up the gift of God in Timothy and really mentored him. And they were co-workers in God's kingdom. They worked together in ministry. And I think we also need a Timothy in our life. You need someone who you're mentoring. You also need a Paul in your life. You need someone who's mentoring you towards serving God and towards really doing it at a greater level by laying hands on you, by speaking life to you, by encouraging you, by correcting you. This is also a kind of friendship that you should probably consider. And the other kind of friendship is between Jesus and his disciples. And I like this because Jesus himself declares and states in John chapter 15, verse 13, that I no longer call you servants, but friends. Like he had called them to be disciples. He had called them to more like also mentor them, but also for them to be partners in the work that he was called to do, the redemptive work. But at some point he says, I no longer call you servants, but friends, because of how they had worked together, because of the fellowship they shared. And yeah, that's amazing when a friend tells you, by the way, you're no longer like an outsider, you're more like a family. Yeah, it feels good. Yeah. Another similar kind of friendship where we see a deity forming friendship with a human is a friendship between God and Abraham. And this is stated in James chapter 2, verse 23. Isaiah 41 and 2 Chronicles 20 verse 7. And I don't think there's any other better person that would rather be your friend than God. Everyone has an opportunity to be a friend of God, especially in this dispensation. So make sure you are a friend, you have a relationship and a friendship with God. Cultivate a relationship with God. And I think another friendship that I also observe is the friendship between Jesus and Lazarus. We see him weeping. Probably that wasn't the reason why he was weeping. The only reason why he was weeping was also weeping because of death, what death meant. But he weeps when Jesus observed so many people dying, and we don't see him weeping. But when Lazarus died, he wept. I think that meant something. Also, we see him coming to chill in the house of Lazarus. Lazarus was the brother to Mary and Martha, and that's where the two of them were having the whole conversation, that Mary is just seated listening to Jesus, while Martha is toiling and taking care, or rather, she's preparing, when she's trying to entertain Jesus as a guest. So I think they were close friends. This one is me thinking, but I think we can observe through the way Jesus wept. Those are the examples with your friendships, and I think there's just so much you can learn from those relationships. If there's any, please mention below. If you know of any relationship and a friendship that you observe in the Bible, I know that have not existed. I just wanted to mention a few. Please mention them down below. So I'll go right into some of the lessons I've learned in regards to friendship. Now we can easily borrow examples there, but I will say some of the things I've learned in my 20s. I've learned that not every friendship is meant to last forever. It is okay to outgrow a certain friendship, especially where you realize that you no longer align. I don't believe in the whole thing of cutting off people, especially if you don't have a major reason. But I mean, if you realize that you are no longer aligning in your goals and values, especially values where maybe you started on a friendship because of a certain thing, but it has reached a point where you feel like you are unequally yoked, especially where it's burdensome to be in this kind of relationship where you feel like you keep being pulled, or someone keep questioning certain values you hold, especially when those values are godly values. Then I think that is a point in a time where you should consider calling it quits, which is really sad, but I think because your faith is at stake, it is important to actually consider it quit. But apart from that, I think that relationships that are seasonal, there are some that are hard to maintain. Even in certain seasons, I see certain people getting married. I don't know whether this is right or wrong, but I feel like there are moments when people transition so much that it's very hard for them to hold on certain friendships. And again, this is not to cut people off, but just so to say that you might not be able to really hang out as much, really it might be very difficult to hold on to the friendship, if not altogether, but at least at the level at which you are initially. Like for me, I'd say like in high school I had a number of friends, but some of them I wasn't able to hold on to them beyond that, or in campus. And that doesn't mean that I've cut them off. Sometimes I meet, or we meet online and we really chat, but it's really hard to maintain those relationships because some of us have moved countries, some of us have moved in fields, and a lot of things. We no longer even share common, not values per se, but common interests that will probably bring us together. So if you have anything to say there, you can give your input. Do you think friendships should be seasonal? But I personally learned, and I'm coming. It's not something that was easy for me. It's something that I'm still coming to terms with, especially in situation where I want to cling on. Like for example, that kind of a person is still around. Like for example, we still go to the same church, we're still working together, but the relationship seem to be weak, not even because there's anything that happened, but just based on the prevailing circumstances. Maybe someone became a mother and now they're always going home to their child. And for me, I don't want to go and always chill with them in their house with their child. I'm hoping that we can have time together, maybe out or doing different activities. Maybe we used to hike together. So maybe some of those reasons. So for me, I'm still reconciling with that bit that friendship should be seasonal, especially those that I really, really treasured. And I realized that they just didn't, like something just happened and I don't know what happened. So the other thing I realized is that friendship is more about depth and not so much about proximity. A couple of you probably know that I moved cities. I moved from Nairobi in terms of work and where I'm usually found most of the time. Sometimes I'm in Nairobi, like right now when I'm shooting this video, but I'm not always in Nairobi. Actually, all my friendships are in Nairobi, really, really deep, long-term friendships. So that means it is hard to, and I don't say that, oh, now it's easy to cultivate this friendship and relationship with a distance. It is a bit difficult because you probably want me to pull up at your, maybe for coffee because you had a bad day and I'm not around. The much you can do is a call, and sometimes the network is not good, or we have blackout, and yeah, a lot of things. So it is difficult. That does not mean that relationship cannot survive. It can, with intentionality. So depending on how much, then when you meet, how much time you put in it, how much vulnerability, how much conversation you put in it, the relationship can stand. So due to the busyness of different stages of life, as long as there is honesty, vulnerability, and conversation, a deep conversation, if you pray together, you hold each other accountable, it is possible to continue or to have a relationship even when there's distance, or you might be even in the same town, but sometimes it's hard because then you cannot meet always. Maybe you all have like very busy schedules. So as long as there's that intentionality and you truly show up for each other when you need each other. Like if someone is in need, you can even take a flight and come where they are, if it means that. Something related to what I just said, and I think I mentioned it, is intentionality. As I said, that now, because when we were younger, we were just there, like friendship was what you did on a daily basis. Like you'll pull up at your friend's place and say hi, take a meal, go for sleepover. Like it was like the way the way you shower, because our schedule wasn't full. But as you grow older, you realize that if you do not plan for it, if you do not plan to create time for friendship, then you'll never have that time. I was joking the other day and I was saying, don't trust me if I tell you I will do something if I've not booked it in my calendar. Even something as easy as hanging out. If I say that we're hanging out on Thursday, please see me book it in my calendar, because if I don't, I will not intentionally want it not to happen, but something else will just happen at that time. I will realize that I've already planned something different on that particular time. So friendship don't just happen. Like any other relationship, if you don't create time for it, if you do not intentionally plan for it, it will be 1 year later and you've never met. 1 year later and you don't know how the person is doing. They have 2 children later, and I don't know if you can still call yourself a close friend. So please note when I'm saying friendship, because I feel like I've really inclined towards the side of friendship more. But I feel like it's one friendship that then creates a community eventually when you have all these people around. So this is the only point that I'm talking about community outrightly, but please, we have said friendship, also think of it as community. So intentionality, community. Depth, community. When you also talk of seasons, think of community. Your belonging to a community can also be seasonal. So the fourth point I want to talk about, Christian community is essential. Equally, Christian friendship is very essential. So currently, I believe that being surrounded by Christian community is non-negotiable. I am convinced. I am always looking for community. I really enjoyed that in my 20s I had community, even without realizing. And I think I didn't take it with the weight it deserves until I did not have it. It just reached a time and I realized, girl, you are on your own. It's actually a few days ago that I was saying, if I think about weird things, including death. So let me say this. Don't feel like this is bizarre. I said things about death every now and then because I feel like it's just one part of life, like it will happen to everyone. But when I say this, don't think that I'm dying. I'm not. I was just saying and thinking the other day, if I died, how soon would people know? And that got me scared. I hope those are not suicidal thoughts. Therapists, please tell me. Asking myself that question was to evaluate whether I have a community that knows what happens around my life, and checks up on me frequently. And I realized I'm not doing so well, and I'm trying to be vulnerable here. I'm not doing so well as far as community is concerned. I'm actually at a weird stage where I'm asking myself difficult question. I'm like, when did I get here? When did I get here? When did I now have, like, when I think of friends, I can count them. When did I get at a point where I don't have a community? It's not like I don't have. I actually got by God's grace, last year I got an online community. But it's just so much that an online community can have, and we are really working towards being a physical community because we initially met online. So we've been making steps at ensuring that we know each other in person, and we've had, so far I think last year we had 3 meetings, last year plus this year February, we've had in total 3 meetings, which is really good, and I'm really appreciative of our leader. It's called the Bible in 1 Year group, and we've done the most, and I thank God, and I hope that community will metamorphosize into something really incredible, yeah. But my former communities and circles, I woke up one day and I didn't have any. Of course, the Bible says, "Cursed is the man that put his trust on other men." But I believe because a community, especially made of believers, is a safe space where you can trust the believers will pray for you, even when they are not able to help you. They will pray for you and with you. They will support you, not necessarily with material things, but even just being there, listening to you. So that's why I really, really treasure community. So currently, there are so many community and spaces that I thought I belonged to, and I realized things have really changed. And this is not to blame anyone, just to blame my situation, especially the fact that I moved outside Nairobi and things changed a lot. People moved on and a lot has really changed. I'm just accepting my reality. I'm moving post my Delulu. Also being someone who's, I am an ENFJ, that's my personality. So I am inclined towards being an idealist. Like I love ideal situations. So I want to really, I even brought it up with my therapist. I was like, oh, this and this happened. I feel like currently I don't have communities. And she could see me wanting so bad what has already passed. And she tried to encourage me to look for ways to try and create new friends and new communities. And that's what I'm currently doing. Finally, how am I navigating my 30s? I am looking for friendship rooted in Christ. To me, they are key, especially where we pray together, where we study the word together, and where I'm challenged by others to grow spiritually. For me, my faith is a very crucial part and aspect of my life. My faith is the basis of my entire life. Like it's very paramount to me. So having friends that encourage me towards that direction, friends we can read the Bible together, we can pray together, we can study the word together, we can like they can rebuke me, they can challenge me to be better, they can tell me about my character if I'm getting out of character. So those are kind of friendship I'm looking at. And right now I'm actually open towards making friends. So the other thing is I have learned to embrace smaller circles. I used to be by nature, I am a social person outside there, but I do not know how to make friends. So I will go out there, say hi to everyone, whenever I can, especially when I become comfortable. But out of it, I'll have like one friend. But also I've learned that it is okay. Like when you're in space, don't focus at being friends with everyone, because you can't, you don't even have the capacity. But the small groups that you create, nurture them, because ultimately you need the right people. You don't need everyone. You can be friendly to everyone, but you don't need everyone to be your friend. The third thing, and this is what I was talking about in terms of categories of friends, it is good to know that there are categories of friends, just so that you don't kill yourself over wanting to make maybe someone who's not supposed to be a close friend or a best friend. People call them best friends. I call it close friend or an intimate friend. Just so that you don't want to turn your colleague into that kind of a friend if they are not. It is okay to have different categories of friends. So we have acquaintances, we have casual friends, we have covenant friends, and you see the case of David and Jonathan. We have mentors, the case of Elijah and Elisha, Paul and Timothy. We have counselors. We have seasonal friends, and as I've said, when you're in school, you can make seasonal friends, and it's just fine, yeah? Don't beat yourself that, like me, for example, now I've realized I didn't make any friend from high school. Maybe there wasn't anything there, like I didn't make any close friend from them. I just have probably casual friends and acquaintances from there, and maybe seasonal friends. So I shouldn't beat myself. If I have a friend now, that's okay. I've always said this, and at some point, I felt like I was just a mean person. I am the kind of a person who loves friendship where we add value. Remember when you were younger and you had just these cliques where you just felt they were cool and that was it. Like there wasn't any substantial value that they were adding to your life or you were adding to their life. If there's anything, some of them would put you into trouble, like with your parents or with teachers. So I feel like 30s is not the place for that. 30s is the place whereby we're telling each other the truth. Like we're calling out each other. We are supporting each other towards goals. We are supporting each other towards godliness. Like this is not the place where you just hang out with the coolest person in the circle. They might not be cool, but if there's value you're adding toward each other, then that's the kind of a friend you should have. So yeah, that's something I've learned for friendship in my 30s. So the other thing and the last thing, the fifth thing about navigating 30s is creating boundaries. I will not read it as I had written it because I don't think it's the truth. I had said I no longer fear setting boundaries. I think I am work in progress. There are areas where I still stumble when it comes to setting boundaries. The biggest boundary that I struggle with is money, but also saying no to supporting people generally. Like if you tell me, could you step in for me? I'll most likely say yes, even when I feel like it will stretch me. I've said yes, or even favors. Like I say, Yes, a lot. I have people-pleasing tendency. An aspect of me has that, whereas an aspect of me is quite confrontational or quite outspoken. But because I am healing from people-pleasing tendency, I'm still work in progress. But that's one of the things I want to be able to do in this journey of my 30s, being able to set boundaries, because I can't be 30 years old and fearing that someone will beat me. They can't. I have an idea, I'll sue them, even if they are my friends. Like, you can't beat me, so I'd rather just tell you no. And if you don't like it, because most of the time we fear that it's because the other person won't like it. It's not because we feel like it's not the right thing to say. We just want to please the other person. So if they don't like it, they can sit down with the emotion and figure themselves out. Then they'll come around. No's are usually difficult. And I think we should be comfortable with that difficult situation. We should be comfortable with us saying that and sitting in with that feeling that we didn't tell them what they wanted, and it's just fine. So I'm still navigating boundaries in communities, in friendships, and I hope that I will be able to figure it out and actually be able to say no where I need to be. Like, my no will mean no and my yes will mean yes, and I will be saying it from a really comfortable place. So that's it for me. Those are my reflections. Those are my reflections from the Bible, from my childhood, from my 20s, and now what I'm hoping for my 30s. Clarity in friendship, being in a community where I get support, not pretending that I don't want support, having friends who we are adding value to each other, not just for the sake of it, and just having friends that I'm vulnerable with, and being in circles where I'm vulnerable and comfortable, and where I grow. So that's it for me. Let me know what your reflections are in regards to friendship and community. Are you in a community where you pray together, where you check in, where you call each other out, where you are accountable, where you pray for each other? Do you have friends whom you also do that with? Do you have friends whom you ask them, why did you say that you will work out and you've not worked out the whole year? When are you starting to work out? You said that, you've told me that for 5 years. Why are we still here? Because when we go to heaven, we will be accountable for our friends. We will be like, you claim to be their friends and you did not tell them the truth. Why? That's it for today. Thank you so much for watching till this point. God bless you so much. See you on the next one. 1 2 microphone testing. 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2.